So we're going to talk about a very particular philosophical political faction. They aren't always organized, but it's ideologically aligned, and I even am concerned with even giving this type of thing a name. But they are the fractured mass, right, within black men that a lot of people are being terrorized by, right? So I just wanted to give this type of short opening because we're gonna go into a group that I don't want you to identify with, because it's very important you hear what they. So this is a philosophical class of men who view black liberation as black male ascension, right? Not collective freedom, right? They're anti-reparationists. So they're suspicious or hostile toward feminism, queer liberation, or intersectionality, and usually and often appeal to natural order, strength, family, or manhood as sacred concepts. They idolize figures like Elijah Muhammad, Kevin Samuels, or even Clarence Thomas, right? People who stood their ground, right? They span older men from religious, nationalist traditions, younger men radicalized by YouTube, TikTok, or manosphere content, formerly progressive men who became disillusioned and turned toward gender-based blame for black suffering. But how large is this group? It's not monolithic, right? But its influence is stronger than its numbers. Unlike ecosystems usually amplify these voices disproportionately. And there's a silence amongst moderate men who won't really challenge these guys, but they offer a seductive clarity. It's not white supremacy, it's feminism. It's not capitalism, it's the gays. Actively, right, in this mindset, in this group that hasn't been, organized so far, around 10 to 20% of black men are in this group, and even more are online, right? Like, there's more online than in real life who are in this group. Does that tell you about the situation, right? It's influenced by its talking points, right? Far more, especially younger men navigating identity in a confusing world, so they tend to hear this type of thing out. But here's where they came from, because this is important. So there was post-emancipation disempowerment. So after slavery, black men were promised manhood and society gave them nothing. They couldn't protect their families, they couldn't own land freely, and they were emasculated in the white gaze. So they internalized white patriarchy, hoping to climb the ladder by becoming what they hated. Then the civil rights, right? The civil rights and the gender betrayal myth. So many believed that civil rights was a fight about black men getting their due. But then women started demanding agency. Queer folks started emerging publicly in the black community. And this was read by some as betrayal, as if liberation was stolen or fragmented when the skin color never changed. Right? But then there's coining the destruction of the black community. The United States intentionally sowed seeds of division. Right, they targeted male leaders for death and imprisonment, right, and it's in a group that already was fragile. They did this on purpose, right, for a group that already felt fragile, and then exploited gender rifts and black power movements, fragmenting organizations amongst patriarchal lines just to target this group. Then there was the rise of the manosphere, right, and digital echo chambers. So in the 2010s, there was the high-value man culture, misogynoir mask behind black empowerment, rewriting history to blame black women for systemic collapse. But they're not fighting for freedom. They're fighting for a throne, right? They want a seat at the table of global patriarchy. Reparations to them is not about repair. It's about reward for surviving humiliation as men. That is what they want. A reward for surviving the humiliation, right? Like, they're very aggressive. You probably know people like this. But this is one of the units, like the tenets of self-policing right here. This organization. But I also want to talk about another group of black men, right? And we can name this men, right? I mean, we can name them a lot of things. The base name I got for them is like the Rewoven Sons. They put back together. These are the put back together folks, right? The puzzle pieces in our community. These are black men who rejected patriarchy as a tool of liberation, embrace healing, softness, and emotional literacy, queer feminist solidarity, and communal ethics. And they believe black freedom cannot be real unless all black lives are free, especially those who are pushed to the margins. This might include, activist scholars like Kaycee Lehman, hope I said it right, Donnell Moore, bell hooks male readers, creators like Terrence Nance, Tyler James Williams, or Moses Sumney, yeah. But fathers, brothers, or lovers who cry, listen, and protect without dominance, and who let go of stoicism as the cost of survival, right? They believe that freedom is not shared, or it is not freedom at all. Manhood is not a goal, it is a cage. Power does not trickle down and ripples outward, and reparations must repair the soul, not just the pocketbook. But they usually feel exiled by both white society and the toxic ends of black patriarchy. It's like they're rebuilding something ancient and tender, but maybe something we've never even seen at scale in black male culture, really, right? It's like they're carrying the grief of ancestors and choosing not to convert it into violence, but into compassion. So here's where they really would have came from, right? Maybe some of the spiritual poets of the Reconstruction, right? Think Frederick Douglass when he wept over his mother's grave, right? Or W.E.B. Du Bois writing letters to his dead son. That's what we want to see. These were men wrestling with vulnerability long before it was a cool thing. The quiet dissenters in the civil rights movement, right? So men like Bayard Rustin, who was gay, and a key strategist for MLK, or James Baldwin, right? Or Neo Soul, right? Or New Black Renaissance. In the 2000s and the 90s, gave birth to artists who asked the question, what if we choose to love? What if we heal before we fought? Those were big things, right? This is what we're looking for, and it does exist. But the thing is that, you know how I said 10 to 20% for that other group? This group, it's vast in potential, right? We can't even determine how many people are like this because they're usually isolated, but deeply powerful when connected. And many of them don't have platforms because they hold emotional and moral authority in their communities, right? Not online. And then they don't recruit by fear, but they inspire through witness, right? So they're the ones who are at the funeral who are breaking down crying. They're the ones who are protesting holding their child's hand. They're the ones who are checking in on their trans cousin. They're the ones who are reading like Andre Lord in The Secret. Okay, it's just one of those things. Like it's really that type of situation. So it's the difference between freedom is control and freedom is connection, right? I just want that to be known. But now we're gonna kind of get into something a little deeper with this one. This is the deep black video that I was talking about earlier. So black men right now are really at a crossroads, right? Spiritually, emotionally, intergenerationally. The soul of black masculinity right now is split. It is literally split open. And the fractured lines are real. We have this fractured mass, right? Who are burned out, suspicious, protective but hurting, isolated among brothers, and often loving but emotionally underdeveloped. They're trying to hold it down, provide, and exist without clarity about who they're supposed to be in a collapsing world. They're stuck in a double bind. Be strong to survive, but also be soft enough to be safe for your people. And they're afraid to fail at both roles. So in this case, they're fueled by grievances, right? YouTube pseudo-wisdom and nostalgia for imagined thrones, right? They're growing louder, and especially online, but their roots are in trauma, not in truth. And here's one easy script they come in. It's everyone else's fault, reclaim your crown. That's a good way to think about it, right? But their kingdom is built on exclusion, and their power depends on denying others theirs. And we're talking about a fractured mass within black men who are denying other black people. Matter of fact, let me stop. They're denying all of us rights because they're worried that a black woman might get more than them in a case where they deserve more. That is what they're willing to do, right? Now, and this other group, right? When I was talking about the Rewoven Sons, or just naming them, they're small but they're fierce in clarity. They would show up in like a healing space, in a queer-friendly activism, in fatherhood support groups, in spoken word or like alternative like art scenes and things like that. Community gardens, grief circles. They don't have a shared banner yet, but they're forming spiritual connections. And how would I put this? They are choosing to be men who are with their people, not above them. That's what they're choosing, right? They're learning to forgive their fathers without becoming them. That's how it looks, right? And then the youth are watching it all, right? This is really the wild card. Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're watching Andrew Tate and Kendrick Lamar, Kevin Samuels and Uncle Phil, right? TikTok rage pods and gentle dad content. They're seeing it all, and they're being pulled between the poles and what we show them through story, through presence and example, and that will define the next era, and they're still malleable. So really, we're in the middle of a spiritual war for definition, and the battlefield is about what does it mean to protect someone? What does it mean to feel something and survive it? Who am I without being the center of someone else's suffering? Can I be black, masculine, and free without dominating someone? It's the question, right, that they need to reckon themselves with. So it's really not about even making the perfect man, right? It's about making accountable ones. And it's not about making dominant men. It's about making connected ones, right? Like I just wanted that to be known. This is a long rambling one, but it's really just about the fact that these men who are doing well feel ashamed. And these men who want to dominate are also ashamed, right? But both of those could only come from a white guy. And it's not funny. That's how bad it is. That's how funny it is. It's not even funny.